Good morning, folks. Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are turning in. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wednesday Word with Dr. Durene I. I am so grateful for you tuning in today. So, over the past 2 weeks, we've been exploring the power of storytelling through our new anthology that I've been highlighting. Desperate women, desperate measures, narratives of women who found God in the shadows. In our first conversation, we introduced the anthology and reflected on how stories have the power to heal, inspire, and transform lives. Last week, we took a deeper look into the idea of the story behind the story and recognizing that every testimony has layers and that often the most powerful parts of our journey are the ones that never make it to the page. We also explore forgiveness as a journey as well as a destination, like Dr. Lovelace said, but not as a single moment, but as an ongoing process of healing, surrender, and God's grace. Through those powerful stories, we were reminded that every testimony has layers and meaning and purpose. So today we're taking another step in that journey. And before we begin introducing the incredible women whose stories fill this anthology, we thought it would be important to pause and answer a simple question. How did we get here? So I am so excited to have for the third time, y'all. She loves me if she showed up with us like that. She loves me. And she got something
Ah,
for us
you
to
from
know and say. So Dr. Betty Lovelace and I will talk, and I want to thank you for joining us again. We're going to talk about the inspiration behind this anthology, how the project evolved, why these stories matter, and what we hope readers and viewers will carry with them as they begin highlighting the author's journeys in the weeks to come.
Mhm.
So we've already, if you've purchased the anthology or just discovering the project, we're here. We're glad you're here. And we invite you to listen with an open heart because someone else's story may be exactly the encouragement you need today. So let's get started without any further ado. So, Dr. Lovelace, over the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about the power of stories and the impact of this anthology is already having. But before we introduce our contributing authors in future segments, I wanted to take a moment for you to talk to our audience and let us know, how did we even get here?
Mm, mm. Well, I mentioned in passing, Doreen, and thank you for allowing me to be in such amazing company for the third time. And I do believe that there's some more opportunities ahead for us because the more I have delved into the work, the more I see that can be done. And so I just want to say to the listeners that this is ongoing. This is not something that you do 3 sessions with Betty Lovelace and you can button it up. It isn't
No.
something where you can even do the sessions with the contributing authors and you think that you're done. The more I have peeled the pages and the thoughts of this anthology, the more I walk away in complete awe. I am wowed by
Me
the
too.
fact that what I didn't know then when the idea was being conceived and what I am discovering now is that we have started digging into a gold mine that is
Mhm.
endless in terms of what it can do. And as we continue talking, I'm hoping the listeners will also be able to see why I use that metaphor of a gold mine or a rock. When I was called
Mm.
into the ministry, I used to use this concept of a rock when studying and preparing to teach or preach God's word. And I have a rock here someplace. Hold on, folks. You're going to see the back of my head for a second. And I might not, but here it is.
We see that beautiful book in the background. Y'all see the book? Y'all see the book?
So here is a rock that I brought
Ooh.
back from Portugal many years ago. And the concept of a rock is If you study that rock, you see any host of things. You see indentations, some of it is smooth, some of it is rough around the edges, but you can turn that rock in any number of different
Mm.
directions. And each time you turn it, it presents something else. Here is an indentation. I turn it again and I see the discoloration. I turn it again and I feel smoothness and I feel roughness.
Mm.
Isn't
Yeah.
this the whole idea of our lives? And
Yes.
as we think about this anthology, I thought of it as a rock, but as I reflect on it now, it's still a rock because I'm turning this book over and over. I'm
Yes.
peeling the pages back and I'm asking what else is there that I need to be made aware of that I did not know at the time that it was an idea, and even what I didn't know when we had a finished product. Because
Mm.
when you're going through something, you're
Mm.
not in a position to experience all of what will come out of that. And so, with this anthology, and as I am reflecting, I'm seeing so much more that I could not see while I was
Mm.
in the process of unearthing this anthology. And so I don't know, Doreen, all of what will come out of this,
Mm-hmm.
but what I do know is that these bad sisters are on to something. All 13 of us, a baker's dozen, all
Hey!
are on to something that's pretty riveting. And we're on to something because and the audience, I hope you don't mind me integrating and weaving and moving in a number of different directions, but as something is
Baby, we having a
very
conversation, and when you having kitchen table talk, you go all over the place. So do you? Do you? They'll follow.
so as
I
I
be
get a
giving this. I
download.
gives the closed caption in the text so they can follow. Do you?
Don't you love her? You absolutely love her. So I had to start thinking about where why this now, which is one
Mm.
of the questions that you ask. The short answer is that there is a profound gap between the faith communities in which many of us operate and society as a whole. There is a profound gap. As I thought about, even many of the churches that I've been a part of, you could not you could not share certain stories you
Mm-mm.
with anyone. It didn't matter whether it was with the leader slash the pastor of the church or with some individuals in the church. We have always had to be careful about what we shared, and churches were not and still are not necessarily equipped to manage all of the things that are brought through its doors or that
Mm.
walk through its doors. And so, if there's any one reason, that is the reason more than anything else for us to give voice, give attention, give time, give credibility even to these stories that impact individuals' lives at a level that sometimes render them to a place of not being able to move forward. They become stagnant. They get to a place to really questioning their own self-worth. And so these stories tap into all of that and allow us to just talk. And we're talking through stories to just share, because every story that is in this anthology is a story that has been lived and experienced many times over. But we have one thing that's different. We're talking on an international scale about our stuff, our
Yeah.
stories, our experiences. And so by doing that, we're hoping that it will have an impact beyond anything that we could have imagined. And so again, there's a gap between our faith communities and society. And then there's also this notion of what should remain silent. There's this notion of shame. There's this notion of, not being able to talk, tell, or do anything public.
Mm.
Everything
Mm.
had to be hidden. And so, the credibility of this anthology just kind of unravels and sets all of that on edge and says, we're daring to talk about it now.
Yes. And that makes me think of the poem you read in Angela Lambert's poem, What Happens in This House? Like, she comes out naming and claiming all the stuff that those of us coming of age in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s that was like, be quiet. And like Bell Hooks say, the silence they were talking to, I can't be silent. I gotta talk. I got to talk. And I love how you said this started out as a Bible study. Did you ever think or see or imagine or envision that it would become this anthology?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, think about the fact that the Bible study was about 10 years ago. And so, had I thought, that we would move in this direction, it would have started much earlier than 10 years ago. And even with that, in 2023, I started writing my story, but I was not ready. And that's one thing I want to say to the listeners, and I think I hinted to it before. Not every story is ready or timed to be told now. We have to tell stories when we can work through. And I'm not going to use the word handle, but I'm close to saying handle because we don't always handle. Sometimes it's real messy. It's real messy before we get to the point of saying, okay, now I'm really ready. In fact, I don't know of anything that anybody tells and that cuts to the core of who you are, and there will likely be some conversation around it. I'm sure everybody wrestles at some point with the telling of that story because all of us want to be presented in a certain way. And what we are saying as the baker's dozen, as the 13 women, we are saying is however you choose to accept or reject us is not on us.
Mm-hmm.
That's on you. Um, there is a book that's titled Where I Enter, I think is the name of
When
it.
and where I
When
enter.
and Where I
Paula
Enter
Gettings.
by Paula Giddings, absolutely. And we all enter from different vantage points. Can we accept each other at whatever place we enter? This anthology dares to not only raise that question, but dares to answer it and say, yes, we accept each other and we are pushing others to do the same as well.
But I
Because
also feels like it's as an author and just more and more I read other people's stuff, it's also helping us accept us and accept the mess that we went through and
absolutely,
and understand and learn and share the journey to help other
absolutely,
women know that you are not alone and you
absolutely.
can't do this alone.
Absolutely. So, a few things that come out of this. There's this sense of community that comes out of, there's this sense that I'm not in this alone. It expands the whole conversation about this faith notion. What really is faith? You know, and do I have enough of it? I just want to clear that up right now because I don't think you ever have enough, which is why scripture starts with the whole statement of the size of a grain of mustard seed. I don't know
Mm.
if anyone has ever Googled or ever looked up how big is a grain of mustard seed. It is so minuscule, you can hardly see it as a
I
seed.
was looking because I a friend of mine gave me a little bag with
It's a
mustard seeds
speck.
in it, and it's like
It's
a
a
pepper.
speck.
It's like ground pepper.
It is a speck, but now have you seen a mustard seed tree? It's huge.
It's
So
like a
then
vineyard.
if scripture tells us
Woo!
that what we need really, if you have faith the size of a grain of mustard seed, I think I'm quoting it
Yes,
pretty
ma'am. Yes,
correctly.
ma'am.
You could tell that mountain over there, Doreen, in your life to get out of your way. And scripture says that it's going to pick up. This is Betty Lovelace paraphrasing. This is Betty Lovelace's translation. We have NIV, we have the King James Version, we have the Message, we have all of these versions. This is the BML version, all right? The BML translation.
I
You
love
can look at that mountain and tell that mountain to get out of your way, and that mountain will literally pick up its skirt and
it.
move out of your way. And so, what we're saying in all of this and with these
Yes.
anthologies is that we're giving people permission. And it is a faith growth experience, the size of a mustard seed. It is a faith growth experience. And as we continue to massage it and see where we are, God knows where we are, but we don't often know where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so this anthology with the testimonies give rise to this whole notion of even an inheritance. We don't think of this anthology as creating an inheritance. But
Yes.
everything that's in here, there have been conversations that others have passed on to us. And we've incorporated many of those things and now passing them on to a broader audience. And that audience, once it reads and finds its place in here, and you are in here, audience, once you
Amen.
find your place in here, then what are you going to do? You're going to talk about it and pass it on to someone else. So isn't that what an inheritance means? Your
Yes.
ability to pass on. And so the anthology in terms of why again, and I think throughout I'll be threading this notion of why, because it creates an inheritance and it creates memory, of God's faithfulness. And I can look at you, Doreen, and say, if God did it from you,
That's
he
so real.
he's coming to my neighborhood too,
That is
because
so real.
I'm a child of his as well. And then it also speaks to courage. I mean, think about that. So why this anthology? I mean, we could spend hours on end just exploring all of this stuff, but I wanted to give the reader just a glimpse of um, of why we're doing, and it becomes a declaration. And the declaration is, I declare before you and all of humanity that God is real. I declare.
And all powerful, all knowing, and cares about you regardless of what anything and anybody says or does.
Not only is he able, but here's the deal. He doesn't always rescue at this particular moment and this particular time. But
That's
here
why,
is
like
where the
what I
real.
read, they said God got a sense of humor. Somebody wrote in there that God
I've
got a
heard
sense
that
of humor,
before.
and that's real. That is so
Absolutely.
real
He
because
has
he's
a
like, I
sense of,
need you now. I need it now, and God's timing is perfect, y'all. I
well,
know. To me, it's always been perfect in my life. I can't speak for nobody else. It has been times when I've been trying to rush God and hurry God and get through stuff or not deal with stuff like you
yeah.
say, and
There's a
that did
book
not
out there
work to
that's
my
titled,
advantage.
there's a book out there to read that's titled, You Can't Hurry God.
Ooh, okay.
I
Who
would
wrote that?
encourage you to get it. There's a book that's titled You Can't Hurry God.
I
I
need
don't care
that.
what you do, you ain't gonna hurry God.
Girl, I didn't
And
learn after 59 years. I didn't learn.
and so it's an inheritance, and it also speaks to, because we're looking at many ways, again, this rock, many ways of this notion of shadows, how it's used. The shadows of the stuff that we go through, the shadows of God, when you see a semblance of Him, but you can't really see all of what you need to see in
Mm,
God. And
mm,
so, even in the shadows, and I mentioned, I think the first conversation we had about us praying for God, to God, to get us out of something. What about praying to God to keep us while we're in it? Whole different stance
that,
on this
that
notion of
is.
prayer. Okay, what else do you have for me?
So the other thing is I want to talk about the evolution of how we got to desperate women, desperate measures narratives of women who found God in the shadows. And I remember when we first started, it was desperate measures, desperate God, and something else I can't remember. How did
Yeah.
that shift and how did that change and what was that journey about?
Yeah, can I place a pause on that? Because I really do. Maybe this is another session. I
Okay.
really do want to explore the whole notion of God being desperate, and we can't
Okay.
do justice to
All
it
right
today.
then.
So if
Y'all done
we
heard it. She said she gonna give me one more again, one more again. All right.
So if we
Okay.
can press a pause there, and I promise when you raise that question next time, I will unpack, I will talk about it from a theological stance. I will talk
Okay.
about it from a broader theological stance, as well as my personal theology, your theology. See, here's the thing that we don't realize, many of us, we realize that there is a theological position, but each and every one of us walk around with our own personal
Mm,
theologies. And so my theology is, who is God to me? Each
Mm.
of us raised that question, who is he
Ooh.
to me? And so if I can just get a pass for today, because if I don't explore it at the level that I know I am commanded to do, then I will do a disservice to God
No,
and I
I
will do a
respect
disservice
that.
to
I
his people.
respect that. I respect that because I want you to be all of your glory and give God all the glory. So my next question then is talking about we know every project changes and develops, and from your original idea to what we're celebrating today. So when you think about how we're about to start talking to the authors, what excites you? What are things that you
Mm,
hope the listeners walk away with as they get to meet the authors behind the
mm,
stories, as well as our motivations for writing and
mm.
sharing?
I think the first thing the listeners will hear and see is the difference, the vast difference in all of us. And yet we all came together under a common umbrella and we produced an amazing book. So I think we will see the distinctions. These individuals are from different walks of life. These individuals have had a vast number of experiences. These individuals have, but we all arrive at the same place. So while our experiences and how we got here might be, and they are different, the one common theme you will discover is that each of these writers will talk about how they encountered God.
Mm,
And that was without any prompting. I did not know the spirituality or the faith of these individuals. I didn't know any of that. I was prepared for there to be someone who didn't claim, to be a Christian, and that would have been fine with me. In fact, one of the individuals who did not make it to the anthology because of the fact, and remember I said that there are some stories you want to tell, but the timing is off.
mm,
And she spoke about the spirits that she and her family encountered and how those spirits
mm.
dealt with them in their household, and how one of the spirits literally grabbed her by the ankle and was trying
Oh,
to pull her off the bed.
oh.
Now, that would shock, can I say it as I think it? That would shock the crap out of a lot of
Be you, Betty. Be you.
I know. I'm just saying that,
No,
Doreen. You
that's real.
want
No, that's
permission?
real. Because that would shock me if something pulling me off my bed. But I believe in spirits and demons and all other kind of things that could get you.
Yeah, I just use that effect. Can I be, me? But
Hey.
I'm gonna be me anyway. So I think we know that. But as she talked, I could see the realness of all of that, because I could see how Paul, even as he was moving about doing the Father's business, how he encountered a young sister girl with spirits. And so all of this is real, whether many of us believe it or not. But she talked about the spirits, and she would have continued to produce her story, but some family members advised her not to,
Mm,
and said, in effect, let sleeping dogs die. But the interesting thing is that there are at least one individual in her family who is still visited. And so,
mm.
you know, uh, so I
Ooh,
can't, so we come from many different places, from many different experiences. Our experiences have shaped each and every one of us in a certain way, but we land on common ground. And
mm,
that common ground is, our faith, trust, belief in God, not necessarily the church, but in God. And that's really where it all starts. That's not where it ends, but that is certainly where it starts. Doreen, was there anything else in that question in terms of
I think the only
women?
you pretty much talked about everything I want you to talk about in that.
Okay.
So the final thing, because I know you got things to do, is I am thinking about your ministry and what are next steps for your ministry. And how does this book, an anthology, and your work with all of us play into that? Because
Mm,
this has
mm,
been as a contributing author, this has really been a wonderful writing experience. And
Mm,
for anybody else there, writing or not writing, y'all know what I'm talking about. You can be in experiences writing journal articles, chapters for books, whatever, with a group of people, and it could be a very traumatizing and make you be like, I don't want to write again.
mhm,
Working with you and working with these women and telling my own story outside of an academic story has been so liberating for me.
mm,
So
mm,
I
mm.
want to thank you for that, and thank you for the
Absolutely.
community that you built
Mm,
and your leadership and
mhm,
how you brought us together and helped us to feel safe and
mhm,
gave us the license to tell these difficult stories
mm,
and help us feel it's okay.
mm, mm. There were times throughout the evolving of this book that we had to press a pause button, and individuals had to get into their feelings because their feelings were getting into them.
Mm,
And so I prayed consistently. I prayed throughout this entire experience. I didn't take anything for granted. I didn't take the modicum of knowledge that I have, and because I know I don't know very much. And I think real knowledge, wisdom begins from the vantage point of knowing that you don't really know and that you have to rely on a source, a resource that's higher than you. And so I came in with intentional humility. So let's start there. I did not profess to know where the anthology was going. I allowed it to unfold. And I came in with daily prayer for patience and
mm,
understanding because I knew that from my own experience that I was delving into an area that would not be pleasant, most of the time. Because
mm,
again, given what the women talk about, some individuals would beg the question, do you even need to tell it? Why not continue to keep it silent? But I think, again, one of the common themes that we all had was that when it's time for, it's just like baking a cake, Doreen. You get all of the ingredients, you stir them up, you put them in the oven, you set it at 325, 350, whatever it calls for, and you let it bake 45 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes. And you check it, but you carefully open that oven door. And
yes.
you might press the top of that cake to see, if it's bouncing back or, but
Or
you
get
don't
that little
open that.
toothpick.
You get that toothpick, but you're careful not to open that door too many
No,
times
yes.
because it will fall flat. Such is the case with these stories. Some
Mm,
stories were opened too early and they fell flat.
mm,
Some stories were poked too many times and it didn't rise to the at the level that they could have. I'm
mm.
amazed that I'm even being given this
I
metaphor that
love this
you know,
metaphor, Betty. That ain't nothing but divine. Keep going.
but it is the cake that has been tended to in the way that it needed to be
Mm,
tended to is placed in the oven, the door is closed, and you have the glass oven where you can see through, but nothing escapes. Now, on occasion, you might easily open that glass door. So, with some of these lives and how we got to where we are today, I had to carefully walk with these women. And, even when they were providing me with excerpts, and you recall this, we got on Zoom, and every session was a Zoom session.
mm,
Talking on the phone, all of that's good. But for this work, I needed to see, I needed to sense, I needed to insert myself into the experiences of these women so that I could do due diligence to their stories. And so it was intentional with me sitting as we are now, Doreen, and raising questions and reading the excerpts and asking, is this really what you want to say? Asking again that why question as you have asked me time and again. And the more I asked and the more I pushed back, on individuals for them to really get to the essence, to the core, to the heart of their stories, they began to believe. Yeah, I really do have a story now. Because
Mhm.
none of us were that convinced early on. All we knew is that we were talking and telling something. But when we saw it begin to take shape, then we were sold. As the song said, I'm sold out. We were
Mm.
SOULED out. We
Mm.
were at that
Yes.
point. And so I was just thankful that the Holy Spirit gave me what was needed in that moment, and more than anything else, the understanding and the ability to be able to walk with each of these writers. And so that was a gift to me. um, that was a gift to me, Doreen,
But
to
that
be
was, and that was a gift to us because the one thing, and I just want to put this out there because the way you started this, you could tell it was divine because you operated in decency and order. I know you interviewed me, and I'm sure you interviewed all of us as to why do you feel you want to tell your story at this time, and how does it fit with what I'm trying to do here?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
even in that process,
mm-hmm.
you helped us understand, is this something you really want to do? Do you
And it,
really want to
yeah,
put that out there?
yeah. It was in part readiness, and it was in part as well risk taking.
Mm-hmm.
It was both. I think both of those work simultaneously because
Yes.
you can be ready, but you may not be ready to tell it all. And there were, with some of the writers, I had to ask because we know when there are gaps. You know when there are gaps, and I just said, what is it that you want your reader to walk away with, and does this story capture that? And if
Mm.
it didn't really capture what really happened, then are you in a position to go back, sit with it a while, and then come back to the table? And there were some that needed to do that. I had to do it. I rewrote my narrative probably 10 times
Mm.
because I kept trying not to say something. This is why I know where these women were. I kept trying not to say something, and I have to give total respect. And I mentioned her last week, I think, to Dr. Mary Weems. WEEMS, who is a writing consultant. So if anyone ever needs one, and if anyone ever, wants to be challenged in a good way, then she would be an individual that would raise those difficult questions. Some consultants would give you a pass, but none of us needed a pass. And so with her working with me for the several months that she did 3 years ago, I
Mm.
was then able to take that expertise, that knowledge, that same drive, to each woman, and just push when I needed to push, and then embrace when I needed to embrace. And so we all went through that, and we went through it individually. And then when we would have the collective Zoom sessions with sharings that
Yes,
took
I
place.
love that. I you
Mhm.
just and I think like that's why this book is about community, y'all, because it was modeled throughout the process of the creation of this product. And when you read these stories and understand how people talk about the things and community is another central thing, just like forgiveness, to this anthology. It
So,
really is.
Doreen, I want to share something, and then I think we'll be
Yeah, yeah, whatever you want, baby.
close. Let's see where my share is. Uh, so I just want to share this, which gives us some notion of where we start and this whole process. As women, all of us,
Go to slideshow if you just want
yeah,
to.
that's what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But you do see it, right?
Yes, we can see it. It's between record and
Yeah.
animations.
Yeah, I need to enlarge my screen. I think that's what needs to happen.
It's okay.
And I don't see slideshow. Um,
Just go with that. And then what you can do is go to the corner of the screen, the bottom right corner, and then you can open it up a little bit. What's that?
wait a minute, I'm getting there. So
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
I wasn't
Woo,
going to
woo.
stop, folks. I wasn't going to stop.
Hey, hey,
And so
hey.
here is, here we are. Here is each and every one of us, and we are ripping and running and giving the appearance that everything is okay. I've alluded to this a few times, that this whole persona that we take on, because it's a public persona and it's where we think we ought to be. And so while we're ripping and running and looking like we got it all together, inside we are just raw.
Mm,
Inside we are struggling.
mm.
Inside we have more questions than we have answers. And so one of the things that I just want to leave with the listeners is that I want you to check yourself and ask what's going on inside of me.
Mm.
Remember, 2 weeks ago, we talked about this notion of how's the weather on the
Yes,
inside of you.
yes.
So I just wanted to give you a visual and just ask, really, how is the weather on
Mm.
the inside of you? And then the second slide, just gives us this whole fierce, black woman syndrome, where we're just
Ah,
going at it, we're going at it, we're going at it, we're going at it. I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna conquer it, I'm gonna do this thing, do this thing, do this thing. And so what we end up, we're on this wheel. I don't know if you remember the experiment that was done many, many, many years ago with the mouse on the wheel. And I mean, the mouse could have fallen off, the mouse could have jumped off, the mouse could have done a whole lot of things. And as we could have done a whole lot of things to slow this process down. But again, we think we must remain where we are. And while here's the pivotal moment here, Doreen. While there is movement, there is not progress.
mm.
There is not change, because we're still on this same wheel going around and around and around in a circle. At what point do you interrupt the cycle? At what
Mm.
point is there a disruption? Because I know in the educational field, and my daughter is really big in this arena, but she talks about the disruption that needs to take place
Yeah,
even within the field of education. And so I just wanted to show this, because sometimes when we get a visual
that's
of things, it,
helpful.
it helps us
Ooh,
to put things in order, and we wonder, why am I so angry all the time? Why am I so confused
because I'm
all
on
the
the
time?
wheel. I'm on the
Because
hamster wheel.
yeah, I'm on this wheel, and I I don't even know if we want to get off. I don't know if we want to get off. And so
And
my
sometimes
question.
we don't know how. We don't know how to get up. We don't know how to stop the
Absolutely.
madness. Sometimes we
Absolutely.
just don't.
And there might be a button that all we need to do is push the freaking button, right? And we can, we
Girl,
can
or tuck, roll, or jump.
fall off the
Tuck,
wheel.
roll, jump.
But it starts with a recognition that
Yeah,
something
that's
needs
real. That
to
is so
change.
real. That
And
is
that
so
brings me
real.
to this thought of desperation.
Mm,
Desperation may be your starting place, but determination ought to be your ending place.
mm.
Be determined to make some changes, because if we're not, we still end up where we started. And this is, where it reminds me of scripture that talks about, where the Israelites were in their Exodus experience. And I think they spent 90 years going around this same mountain. Now, why you got to go about like the mouse on the wheel? Why you got to go around the same place? You seeing the same things. You know how you try to play off? You got a friend girl or somebody visiting you in town, and you try to take her somewhere, and you miss your turn. You miss your turn, and you end up going back to the same place where you were. But you're not gonna say nothing. You just gonna keep driving, right? And so that's what this photo represents. That's where the desperation seeps in, and we are burdened, we are bent over, we are distraught, we don't know which way to go until we hear a friend, a counselor, a therapist, God say you've been going around this mountain of desperation long
Mm,
enough.
mm.
Turn north, right?
Wow.
Turn north, turn north.
Mm.
And so, in closing, Doreen, I just want to share a book that our dear friend, Dr. Tony King and Elise Ferguson. This book is almost 30 years old, almost 30 years old. And it
Oh.
and it I thought I remember books that have impact on you, you remember, and you kind
Mhm.
of know where they are on your shelf. And so I pulled this book down, and the title of it is Deep Woman Feelings, a book of contemplations. But here's what I gleaned from this book, with the notion of focusing on from desperation to determination. And this book reminds us that women and men are working diligently to recover from a host of traumas. Isn't that, I mean,
That's
we're
real.
working to recover from a host of traumas. It could be addictions, it could be alcoholism, sexual abuse, physical, emotional abuse, racism. See, we don't often talk about racism being traumatic,
Hmm. And
but
how about classism and poverty?
all of
That's
those,
traumatic.
poverty, the absence of, even the absence of the support that you need, all of these things are traumatic. But here is what doctors King and Ferguson say, that there is something a little bigger and brighter, and it's just around the corner. And so they say, resolve all barriers. Look at all of this desperation, have a determination. So resolve that all of these barriers, all of these obstacles that stand between you and your dreams, resolve that they can be lifted. That's that determination piece there. They can be lifted. So I say to the listeners today, sometimes we need to disrupt our own lives. Sometimes, and I believe God gives us what we need, whether it's a person or the wisdom or what have you, to engage in that divine disruption. Let's call it that. To engage
I
in that
like that.
disruption. So I just want to leave to the listeners that give yourself permission to engage in divine disruption. Your time is now. Your opportunity is here. And it behooves each of us to do life differently moving forward.
Mm. Is there a final word? Because you didn't answer my question about where your ministry is going. Is that you want that on another episode? Because
Well,
I would love to know. Because
I
I
think
just
in
feel
that
like I
final.
would love for you to do a book club, online book club with this book. Like I would love that.
I don't know where I'm going. That is my prayer. Here's what I do know. I do know that there is a much larger audience out there, and I do know that there are so many opportunities out there. In fact, I got a note from one of the contributors this week, and she said that she actually gave, because she had gone online and ordered the copy, much like many of the other women did. But they were each receiving complimentary copies, and so she said, "I gave my copy to my sister who works in a prison ministry," and so it
Mm,
then clicked. I'm going to donate some copies to a
yes,
women's prison ministry.
yes,
Also, and I mentioned this last week as well, there are many conferences that I am seeking to be a part of.
yes.
There are I'm at a point, and Doreen knows me. If something gets in my craw, I don't stop till it's done. And
Mm-mm.
so I say to the listeners, if you know of any opportunities, whether we're talking about women's groups, I've also joined an authors club, and so I'm just looking at any 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 possibility that's out there. I don't know enough about any of this to say that with any degree of precision or definitiveness that here's where I'm going. What I say is I'm open. And if anyone
And you
has
willing
any
to be
idea,
led because that's when you know you're gonna go in the right direction versus like what is that scripture say? Man can make plans, but God gonna make the decision of how it
oh,
works out or don't
absolutely.
work out.
So
So
I am reaching out to individuals, just offering up me. That's what I have right now,
yeah,
me
yeah.
and this body of work, and saying, collaborate with me. Let's see where we can go. And so that's where I am. I'm offering it up. It is part of my ministry, and I think it will dominate in large measure what I do moving forward because I see the potential. So,
And it connects to all your other works, Betty. Like every time you come out with a new publication,
mm, mm.
God takes you a step further
He
in
sure
how
does. He
you
sure
help
does.
us to deal with this humanness
Hmm,
and
hmm,
and and and, and help us to be better human
hmm.
beings. And so
Well, and
I
here's
think,
what I will say too. Uh, I have been fashioned, and not everyone can say this, but more and more I'm getting real comfortable with being uncomfortable. More and more, I say that, use me, Lord, wherever it is, because not everybody can talk about their story. And I had one person, one of the authors, to send a note to me, and let's see if I can find what she said. And we never know how our stories are striking people. Uh,
mhm. And it helps us. Like folks comment, let me know how you are enjoying our sessions. Let us
mhm,
know
mhm,
if you have picked up the book. Let us know in the commentary or direct message us.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. If a story was powerful, say that. If a story really hit you in a certain way, say that. I know one of the things too, one of the stories in this book talks about desperation not having the last word.
yes.
I mean, isn't that potent? Desperation does not have to have the last. In
Yes,
fact,
but that
desperation.
goes to your disruption. And that's like what I said in my story. I'm not gonna let denial, depression, and doubt, keep me from what I'm supposed to be having. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, and the
We can't do that.
biggest thing for me, because I had to share with family that I had done, and just did it after the book was done, because one of the pieces of advice that Dr. Weems said to me, she said, "This is your story. You don't need the approval from anybody to tell it.
Mm,
Tell your story, and whether they accept it, reject it, or otherwise, that's on them."
that
And
is.
so I did share with family members. I said, I need to, because, people were wanting books. I said, I need to let you know that there are some unpleasantries. I need to let you know that there's a story in there about our grandfather. And, uh,
Mm.
and they may choose to read it or overlook it, but here's what I believe. They're going to be compelled, because
They
that's how
gonna
this
read it.
works.
You
They're
you
going to be
can't
compelled to read it.
you
I,
gonna read it, and at
I'm
and
not
the
worried
end,
about it.
it's gonna fall the way it needs to fall. Because the one
Absolutely.
thing that I truly believe is when God is in the midst of something, it ain't gonna do nothing but do greatness.
It
And
has,
this is
yeah. So
it,
where do I
you.
go from here? Wherever he leads me,
I
into
love
any sister circle, into any environment. I'm thinking, how can I get accepted? Or how can I be allowed into the prison ministry, even to talk with
it.
women there about desperation?
Mm.
So I'm wide open. And again, listeners, if you know of possibilities, my email address is my name, Betty Lovelace at gmail.com. So hook me up, just reach out to me, reach out to Doreen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I
And I'm
appreciate.
Dr. Wheeler, WIP at gmail.com. So, and
Yeah.
I'll put it in the description, both of our emails, in case you want to get in touch with us. But yeah, if y'all want somebody that's dynamic, phenomenal, Dr. Betty Lovelace, Dr.
Thank you for
Betty
that,
Lovelace,
Doreen.
Dr.
And
Betty.
I will travel.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So, Dr. Lovelace, thank you but I want to do this while I want to do this and show my little screen. So y'all, I'm hooking y'all up. You got the QRS code. You ain't got no excuse. Dr. Lovelace, thank you for sharing not only the
Absolutely.
story behind this anthology, but also the heart behind the vision. It's clear
Mhm.
that Desperate Women, Desperate Measures didn't simply become a book. It became a ministry rooted in courage and the belief that God can use our stories to bring healing and
Mhm.
hope to others.
Mhm.
One thing I've been reminded through these conversations is that every testimony has a beginning, a struggle, and a purpose. Sometimes we only see the finished product, but today we've had the opportunity to see the prayer, the perseverance, and the obedience that brought this project to life. Over the next few weeks, you'll have the opportunity to meet many of the remarkable women whose stories fill the pages as desperate women, desperate measures, narratives of women who found God in the shadows. But that's not all. The story behind the story is also growing into a space where we'll feature other authors and storytellers exploring the inspiration, faith, and experiences behind their work. I hope you join us for each conversation, whether you're walking through a season of uncertainty, healing from disappointment, or simply looking for encouragement. I believe these stories will remind you that you are not alone. If today's conversation encouraged you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, share it with someone that they might need a word. And until next time, remember your story matters. Even the chapters you wish you could erase may become the very testimony that God uses to help someone else. So be blessed and be a blessing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right, folks. We are so appreciative. Good night. Good day.
Good morning.
Yeah, that too. Bye bye. Be blessed and be a blessing.
All